Okay, so what we're going to do with the remainder of this episode is we are going to conduct the first ever Jank Diver Core Skyfisher tier list. People love tier lists, right, Daneelius?
Absolutely.
So in order to facilitate this, we are going to leave it running here on the podcast. I think I will decide that here shortly. But I'm definitely recording a video of this to have potentially on the YouTube channel. And we're just going to talk through the core Skyfishers that are available on the client and try to come to a consensus sort of ranking for them. And just see how this goes. So I have pulled up 21 cards that we agreed to consider Skyfishers. And by we agreed, I mean Daneelius didn't complain too hard after he pointed out that one of the Skyfishers that I had was actually a Mana War, and that if we wanted to do that, we had to include a large number of cards. So I took off, what was the card called, Daneelius? Was it Hot Shot? Hot Shot something. It's like a 6-mana Mana War that if you bounce your creature, you investigate.
Yeah, there's I think there's a lot of qualms that the average tier list enjoyer could have with the selection, but if we went with the full tier, Skyfisher adjacent card list, we would be here for 3 days.
Yeah, so the cards we have selected are on the Arena client at common or uncommon, and they all, as part of their effect, require you to return a creature or permanent to your hand. Some of them are only creatures. Some of them are only enchantments, but they all do require you to bounce a card of yours, and they cannot interact with your opponent's cards. Let me just double check and make sure that's true. Yeah, okay. Just double check, make sure I missed it. Probably. All right, I'm gonna move these around so that we don't have all the good ones here at the very beginning. I had them in a specific.
Is it a thing if it can't be tier listed? That's really the question. I would say no. It's not.
Yeah, you can literally tier list everything. There's an infinite number. See, I already talked about the Jank Diver Gaming tier list cinematic universe, where we'll tier list the tier list. We'll rank our tier list videos once we have enough of them. Okay,
tier list inception.
So I figure it's only fair to start this list off with the technically the one that started it all. If we want to get real technical, Shrieking Drake is the original core Skyfisher, but we're going to start with the one that the archetype is named after. We're going to start with core Skyfisher. So let's talk about this card, Daneelius, because I want to put it in A tier. I think this card used to be the gold standard for these effects. 2/3 flyer for 2 mana was completely ridiculous when it was printed in terms of stat lines to like what you got. Even amongst rares, it was pretty good. I do think now it can't be an S tier because there are effects that I consider better than it. But I do think it is at the top of A tier. And if you want to include synergies with other specific cards, if you include its Oketra Monument synergy, I would accept an inclusion into S tier.
Yeah, so I mean, one thing I'll say is I'm going to be ranking these in general for Peasant Cube, not necessarily like, okay, I'm in a deck where I'm trying to maximize the Skyfisher effects and then ranking them according to this. So just in general for Cube, I would say Skyfisher is probably an A for me. I don't actually play Skyfisher in my queue because it's not in my card pool, but I do play Fear of Isolation, which is effectively the same card. There's some slight differences, and I think Fear of Isolation is very good, forspicable. I wouldn't put it at S tier, but I definitely would put it at A tier.
Okay, yeah. I think another couple of things about this card, pick up lands. Not all of them can do that. And I also wanted to stop and just take for a minute because obviously people have seen a million tier list videos by now. But one thing I wanted to say is we probably want to define our parameters here. So for me, S tier is best of the best. These are the ones that have some sort of unique utility or are just absolutely premium. A tier are the really good ones. B tier are like good in certain spots. C tier are kind of bland, and the D tier are kind of in like the thoroughly outclassed niche tier. Are those acceptable terms?
That's fine with me.
Okay, so we'll start with core Skyfisher in A tier, and then we'll go to the newest Skyfisher, which if you think power creep is overrunning Magic, can I introduce you to, oh dear, I should have printed the name of these cards. I don't remember what this one's called. Give me a second. Let me check. I have the list in our group chat. You can tell we're very professional here at Jank Diver Gaming and Co. This one is called Exosuit Savior. And it is a 2/2 flyer for 3 mana with basic core Skyfisher text.
Fix Skyfisher, basically.
Yeah, this
But
is
it's a May.
This is,
It's a May.
oh, is it a May? Yeah, it is a May. Okay, yeah, it's returned up to one target creature, so you don't have to. You could just play a Windrake. I think this is D tier. I think this card is kind of awful. I don't really see any reason to run this over the bevy of interesting and good Skyfishers that are on the client, unless you are specifically gating yourself for power reason, which to me is the epitome of D tier.
The whole point of a Skyfisher is that you're getting good stats for the mana invested, and you're not getting that here, so I don't know why you'd ever play it.
Fair enough. Okay, next up we have Rescuer Sphinx. This is an old one from War of the Spark. So Rescuer Sphinx is 2 blue for a 3/2 flyer, and it has flying. I think I just said that. As Rescuer Sphinx enters the battlefield, you may return a non-land permanent you control to its owner's hand. If you do, it enters with a +1/+1 counter. Now, this one these days, I would not consider above rate stats. I would consider 4 mana for even 4/3 worth of stats to be on a flyer to be a little below rate. And so we're not getting great value, but I do think there is more incentive to play this one because of the color that it's in. And I think being in blue, this effect was pretty rare for quite a while. We have a number of these now, but I still think I wouldn't put this in the completely and totally outclassed D tier. I think I would have this in like C tier, as like I wouldn't play it in a lot of cubes, but I could see reasons to play it.
Yeah, I think C is probably fair. I still would suggest there's not great reason to play it in a cube unless you're intentionally depowering your environment. But if you are, then yeah, I think this could at least be a passable version of the effect. But, double blue, 4-drop, your 4-drops are already supposed to be giving you value. The fact that this one, you kind of have to set it up, not ideal. So it's okay.
Yeah, I just to be clear, C tier are not cards that will make most cubes, I don't think. Yeah, but there are reasons that beyond very niche ones. Okay, next up we have Rescuer Chinga, which I think there's an argument that the Chinga archetype or Twinga archetype is actually just it's a sub archetype of Skyfishers. They're kind of a different effect, and you get opportunities for even more value out of them. And I had a really tough time placing this one because I do feel like it is outclassed, like directly outclassed by multiple cards on this list. But I also couldn't bring myself to put this card into C tier because I still feel like this card's just really good.
Oh yeah, I definitely wouldn't put it in C. I'd definitely put it in B. And yeah, I agree. The thing that the Twingas do is that they can be cast at flash speed, which matters a whole lot, especially given the fact that one of if not the single best target for your Skyfishers is Nowhere to Run, which also can be cast at flash speed. So yeah, I think Twinga is great, and the only reason why it's not in my cube anymore is because we got a strictly better version.
Yeah. Speaking of. This one is not the strictly better versions, but we will, I think, get the full range of kind of power level barometers here. We have Sun Pearl Kieran, which is from Tarkir Dragonstorm. So it's 1 and a white for a 2/1 flash flyer. And when it ETBs, you may return up to 1 target non-land permanent you control to its owner's hand. If that card was a token, you draw a card. And Daneelius, is there anything stopping us from just putting this into S tier and saying read the card and understanding why it's good?
No, but I'd go a step further, and I'd say that this is the clear best Skyfisher, not very close.
Interesting. Okay, got clear best Skyfisher, because I actually don't have it as the clear best Skyfisher.
I'm aware, yeah, but that's a point of contention. I think
yeah,
that, again,
okay.
If you're ignoring the fact, like if we're not assuming that we're already in a space where we are intentionally trying to get as many Skyfishers into our deck as possible, like we're not necessarily a Skyfisher deck, then I think this is just very clearly the best Skyfisher because it goes in every single deck, and it's going to be one of your better cards in every single deck. Even if you have no permanents to return, it's still a 2-mana 2/1 flash flyer that protects your creatures, even from removal if you're playing any amount of tokens. I mean, I've seen this card sacrifice tokens probably more often even than its return permanents to your hand just to get the card draw. So I think this is the most flexible Skyfisher. Does the most. Yeah, I think it's the best.
I do agree it's the most flexible. I think the Chinga text of being able to pick up a card in response to removal comes up more often than you believe. It's got the most upside of any Skyfisher because of that. With the draw, I just don't think it's clear best. I think it probably is the best one or tied for best one. But I think the one we'll have coming up here in a minute is one that I would argue might be a little better. But first, let's take a break with Aviary Mechanic. This was another hard one for me to place, and I think I'm going to probably change my mind on where I placed it. I originally wanted to place it in B tier because 2 mana is cheap, and a big difference for me in my initial, like, this is my 2-minute tier list, was the cards that were cheap were all really high, and the cards that cost like 3 or more were all really low. I think I want to move this down to C tier though, because I don't really see a reason to run this over any of the Chingas, and multiple Skyfisher variants are better than it, which to me sounds like a C tier card to me.
I would go further and I would put it in D, and my reasoning is basically the difference between returning a creature to your hand or returning any permanent to your hand is massive. It's like the whole point of, a lot of what we've been talking about this episode is what makes these cards good is how many of these really solid game object or spells as game objects we've been getting, and the fact that Mechanic doesn't really get to interact with most of those. Yes, it gets to interact with creatures, but the creatures. Oh, well, then I'm an idiot. Never mind. All right. Cut everything I just said from the episode.
You had me second guessing myself. I double checked it just now.
Of course, I have to read the card to explain the card. Okay, never mind. Yeah, it's a C.
I didn't read this one, to be fair. To be fair, I didn't read this card, so you couldn't explain it. Aviary Mechanic, for those at home, is from Kaladesh, and it's 1 and a white for a 2/2 with Core Skyfisher text as a May ability. So it's a bear that returns a permanent to your hand. If you want to put this one in C tier, I think I'm fine with that.
No, I thought this card was totally different. Never mind. This is where you come for the expert peasant analysis. No, I think C at best still though, because it can't be cast at flash speed and its body is pretty unimpressive.
Yeah, I agree. You're not really getting away with anything on this one. I'm fine moving this to C tier, having thought about it a little bit. You're just not getting away with anything, even if it is cheap. All right, next up, we have the one that I was arguing was the best Skyfisher, which is Nurturing Pixie from OTJ. So it's a single white mana for a 1/1 flyer, and when it ETBs, you may return up to 1 non-land permanent to your hand. And if you do, the Nurturing Pixie enters with a +1/+1 counter. Now, to me, this is the best one because what you're looking for with Skyfishers is you're looking for good stats for the mana. And if you show me a creature in Magic that has a better stat line than 2/2 for 1 mana with flying, even today, that doesn't have a huge hoop to jump through, it is not entirely common. I think this card is incredibly good. It synergizes with a bunch of new cards that we get in every set that interact with low mana value or low power or, kind of permanents. It has a bunch of random synergies. It does require you to be a little more committal than the Cure, and I will give you that. I will grant that. But I think once you're looking for some synergy at all, I think Pixie just jumps up. It's super, super efficient. Like the number of plays that you get to do this that you can't even do with Kieran into the early game is super valuable. I would settle for it's tied as the best Skyfisher, but I think I would. I think I'm gonna ready to argue a little bit that it's at least tied for best.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great card. I definitely think it's a great card. I would put it, kind of bottom of S tier. Really, what I prefer is more top of A tier. I've seen enough Pixies not do the job that's kind of where I'm down a little bit on them. Like I've seen Pixies be often enough just a Windrake, where it's picking up your 2-drop and you're replaying your 2-drop. And the biggest difference between Pixie and say Skyfisher is that you can't return that land, and you might think that that's not a big deal, but I mean I've been in situations definitely where Skyfishers are picking up lands either to make mana, which is like a really relevant upside of those cards, or just because you don't have another target because things aren't going well for you because you're under pressure and you can't afford to pick up some of the power and toughness you've already put into play. So I think the card is great, and yes, when things are going well for you, it's the best. I agree. I definitely agree with that. When your deck is maximally synergizing around game objects, when you have a thing in your opening hand that you can play to then immediately return, then I think definitely Pixie is probably the best out of all of these. But it's also the one that maybe asks the most out of you, and so I would put it at a tier below Sunpro Kieran. But I'm not. We don't need to fight that much about it. I do think it's a great card, and I wouldn't be super upset with. I'm not going to be super upset with anything, but I can see bottom of S. But for me, Sunpro is just a different category card. It's just a tier above.
Fair enough. I will put it for the sake of this tier list below, though. If I were personally ranking it, I would still probably have it above. Fair enough. Above Sunpro Kieran. But that being said, they're both amazing cards. I have one other card on this list that I think we can argue for S tier. I could see it bumping down a tier, but I think it's a pretty hard sell. That being said, the next card is not it. So next up we have Sticky Tongue Sentinel from Bloomborough. So Sticky Tongue Sentinel is 2 and a green for a 3/3 with reach. And when it enters, return up to one other target permanent you control to its owner's hand. This one can hit lands. So my initial thoughts on this one were that the Sticky Tongue Sentinel made it into A tier. The reason being is that while Sticky Tongue Sentinel is a little expensive, it's not an egregiously good rate. It is a pretty good rate. Reach is an undervalued mechanic, particularly in Modern Magic. 3 toughness and 3 power on a reach creature means it blocks most of the relevant flyers. And it's in a color that, outside of Temur Sabertooth, that we don't have on the client and also only works with creatures and is also 4 mana plus a bunch of activations. There aren't a lot of this effect. Like, this is a pretty unique effect. And so at the moment, if we had more competition, I could see bumping it down. But it's hard for me to drop it below, like, bottom of A, top of B is probably about as low as I would want to go on this one, just due to how unique it is on its color.
Yeah, I was thinking more bottom of B, top of C, but so I think there's different considerations. One is, you're right, it's pretty unique for green, but part of where I'm like not that sold on that aspect of it is green's probably the worst in terms of spells as game objects. That being said, if you have a small cube especially, then that kind of gets thrown on its head because of Hunter's Talent, which is probably the card that you're looking to pick up with.
Yep.
With this. So, I think it's a solid card. I think, in general, I'm always going to have a preference for cheaper cards. So I have a hard time ranking it, at similar levels as these 1 and 2 mana Skyfishers. But, somewhere around B, I think is fine. Okay. I'm generally happy to play it. It's just, I do think that green suffers from a lack of really good targets that white really doesn't suffer from.
Yeah, notably, we do play in a small cube and have Hunter's Talent in the cube. So
absolutely, yeah.
Your mileage may vary. Next up, we have what will hopefully be a pretty quick one. We have Mischievous Mutt. Is that the name of it? Mischievous Pup, excuse me. 2 and a white for a 3/1 with flash. When this creature enters, return up to one other target permanent you control to its owner's hand. So I'm caught a little here between thinking that this card is really, really bad and didn't play well in MKM. And also thinking that it's hard for me to put the actual Chinga variants into D tier. So I kind of had this at the bottom of C tier. What are your thoughts?
I don't think I have as big a problem as you do as putting this into D tier.
I was trying to keep like the D tier from being just completely full. I'm trying to avoid that, but yeah, I don't think this card is good.
I don't know if you noticed, but it has 1 toughness, and it doesn't get like a counter when you do things with it. So yeah, that's kind of just unacceptable to me. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. You've sold me. I didn't take much to get me out of the bottom of C tier and into D tier. Would you put it above or below a Windrake?
Oh man,
below.
Probably below. Probably below. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'd put it below Windrake now that I'm thinking about it.
3/1. Okay. I hate 1 toughness, man. You know this about me.
Yeah. So just to be clear to the folks at home, I think I've mentioned this a few times. This when I say I have an initial grade on a card, that was like I put together the tier list in like 2 minutes, very, very quickly. All right. So next up we have let me confirm the name on this card. I've been doing this in advance on a couple of them that I didn't know, but this is Loyal Griff. So this is 2 and a white for a 2/2 flyer with flash. And when it enters, you may return another creature you control to its owner's hand. So you have to ask yourself the question of, is targeting only creatures but getting flash enough to pull it out of the D tier over the other Windrake? And I'm not sure that it is now that we're really talking, now that we're going to be talking about this.
Yeah, I'd say the answer to that is no. The only pause I have is like, is it really that much worse than the Rescuer Sphinx we have at C? It's like, I think both those cards are kind of so yeah, bottom of C, top of D, I'd be fine with either one of those. Okay.
I'm going to tentatively put it at the bottom of C only because I like the Chinga text and I really, really do not like Exosuit. And I think I don't know, maybe it's better than Mischievous Pup.
Well, like comparing it to Aviary Mechanic, it basically has flash and flying for 1 more mana. Did you say it can hit non-creatures? I can't.
No, it can only hit creatures, so that's
in that case, yeah, just slam dunk D. Just put that.
Slam dunk D. All right, yeah, I'll put it at the top of D because flash on this kind of effect is still pretty good.
Sure.
Not that we're really splitting hairs here now.
Yeah.
All right. So next up we have what I think is the actual factual classic. Is this Onslaught that this card originally came out in? It's Shrieking Drake, so it's a single blue mana for a 1/1 flyer, and when it enters, you return a creature you control to its owner's hand. All right, so this card's not good.
Whoa.
But it costs 1 mana.
I'm not sure that I would say it's no good. It's just a combo card, and if you don't have combos, then yeah, it's no good. It's like my understanding, at least, is there's combos with this. I don't play in formats where there's combos with this, so sure, if you want to play a combo in your cube for some reason, and this is a part of it, then yeah. Otherwise, no, it's terrible.
Yeah, I again initially had this in B tier, which I think in retrospect is way too high, and I was probably considering the combo implications of stuff like Oketcher's Monument. And there's actual real combos with this card, but Oketcher's Monument's kind of like the peasant level combo. I think at 1 mana, I don't know, it's so bad. 1/1 flyer is so bad.
I think given the combo implications, I'm fine with C tier. I can't.
C-tier?
I think in the average cube, there's no way it's getting up to like B tier level.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, so next up we have Stockpiling Celebrant, which is from Wilds of Eldraine, and it is 2 and a white for a 3/2, and when it ETBs, you may return another target non-land permanent you control to its owner's hand. If you do, scry 2. I had this at B tier, but kind of at the bottom, and I actually think this card's pretty good. Like, it's kind of awkward because you're not really getting away with anything at 3/2, but I do have recollections of Scry 2 being really powerful when you were in the kind of grindy and attrition games that sometimes these decks find themselves in.
Yeah, I mean, Scry 2 is the whole thing here. That being said, I would not put it up in B. I think it has similar value as, say, Sticky Tongue Sentinel. I think the 3/3 reach body does quite a lot there and can return lands where this can't. And, one thing about returning lands is not just about making mana. It's also that you can pick up MDFCs, which is definitely a relevant upside. So I would put this at B, and I'd be okay with put this in B and be okay with the bottom of B.
You said C, bottom of B?
Sorry, B, bottom of B. That would be my inclination.
B, bottom of B. Okay, sorry, I thought you said you didn't want to put this in B. Okay.
No. I at first I was going to put it in C, but honestly, I think that the Scry 2 does matter quite a lot.
Okay. So next up, we have Emancipation Angel. So is this Double Masters that this came out in, or Jumpstart? Maybe it's Jumpstart. So it's 1 white for a 3/3 flying angel, and when it enters the battlefield, you return a permanent you control to its owner's hand. No May here. That being said, I mean, it's kind of hard because we're judging these on modern stat lines, which is a little awkward, but like 3/3 for 3 and flying stats is not terrible. It's not like crazy getting away with things, but it is still not something you see all the time, right?
Well, so first of all, I'm very disappointed that you forgot the limited All-Star set Avacyn Restored, which is where this card was printed.
You're right. So the card symbol I had on here was for Jumpstart, but you're right. Yeah. This is Avacyn Restored, which that was a million years ago.
In one of the most rancid limited sets of all time.
Yeah, that set sucked.
No, I mean, for me, it's not about the body size; it's about the double white, and I need an enormous amount out of my double pipped cards to want to play them, and this isn't enough. So for me, this is probably a D. Even if you read it as better than these other Ds, double white is a huge cost. And Rescuer Sphinx also has double blue, which is part of the reason why I don't like that card that much.
I'm going to ask, is this card actually worse than Rescuer Sphinx? I mean, it's in a color that has more of this effect, but I kind of think bottom of C, I do think this is better than the trash down at the bottom of the beep. I think bottom of C, not that these are cards you're likely to make your cube, but I do think Emancipation Angel is better than the stuff we've got floating in D.
I guess what I'd say is that, to me, double pip almost makes it more of a 4-drop anyways. And so it's basically a form. It's like Rescuer Sphinx, but slightly different.
You're right next
so
to
fine. I think that's fine. Yeah.
You're not playing these cards anyways in the bottom.
Please don't play these cards. Yeah.
Yeah, these cards, I will admit, these are the kind of cards I do love getting printed. I know we're kind of bad-mouthing them a little bit, but I do actually really like these Cs and even some of the Ds, though really it's the C-level cards that I like getting printed because they allow for power modulation when you're trying to do more thematic cubes. Because a lot of times you're looking for an effect, but you really don't want to put some Procurant in like your Neo Set cube, for example.
For sure.
So I really like these cards existing, even if we're kind of crapping on them. All right, so next up we have God, what is this card's name? I thought I had it memorized.
Geothermal Kami, I believe.
Thank you, Geothermal Kami. 3 and a green for a 4/3. And when it enters the battlefield, you may return an enchantment you control to its owner's hand. If you do, gain 3 life. All right, so what are we thinking about this one, Daneelius?
I think that it is true that oftentimes the permanent you want to return to your hand is an enchantment. However, it isn't always, and that's kind of the death knell for this card. So it's like if you're playing an enchantment-focused green section or an enchantment-focused cube, then this is maybe gets all the way up to like, I don't know, B tier. Gain 3 life is a big deal, but on a card like this especially that's giving you card advantage. But given the fact that the card I'm going to want to return is often not an enchantment, for me it's got to be D.
Okay, well, how would you feel about putting it at the bottom of C tier, because it does see like we play this in our Neo set cube. Still, obviously, it's a Neo card.
Yeah.
But I think there is room to play this, like you said, in Enchantment Matters cube, and I think like these D cards are cards that you're just like really never putting in a cube.
That's fair. And you know, Shrieking Drake is a card that certainly will get played in some cubes that are trying to push combo synergies at least. So it makes sense that the C tier is both like misses the mark or needs some kind of specific synergies to get played.
Yeah. C tier is your power modulation or specific synergies tier.
There you go. Yeah.
So next up is one of the ones that everybody loves from M20, Yarok's Wave Crasher. So it's
Everybody
3 and a blue. For when it enters the battlefield, return another creature you control to its owner's hand. So this one kind of hits all the marks of being bad. It's not a particularly great stat line. It only returns creatures. It doesn't have flash. Does this card do anything?
Nope, nothing at all. It's terrible. Very, very bad. What
All
were
right.
they? Oh, I guess the point is it's an elemental, and this set had like an elementals entering the battlefield theme. But the fact that it's required, it's not a May. How? Oh man, I guess a May. Then you have a 4-mana 4/4 blue creature, and that was unacceptable. 6 years ago, and this got printed or whatever. I guess.
I guess so. Please don't remind me that the year 2020 was almost like 5-6 years ago. Okay, so we then come to Storm Sculptor, which is 3 and a blue for a 3/2, can't be blocked, and when it enters, return a creature you control to its owner's hand. I'm going to save us a lot of conversation and just throw it down here next to Yarok's Wave Crasher, unless you have a serious...
Love it.
Okay. Then we have Ambrosia... Is it Ambrosia or Ambrosia?
Ambrosia Whiteheart, yeah.
Ambrosia Whiteheart, thank you. It is 1 and a white for a 2/2 with flash, and when it enters, you may return another permanent you control to its owner's hand. And if you're thinking that sounds an awful lot like Rescuer Chinga, don't worry. It has landfall, and when land enters, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn, which kind of sounds like is completely irrelevant, like the way I'm saying it. But getting to 3 power is like kind of relevant actually. It attacks through a lot more stuff than Shinga does. It's not quite as much of a complete like dud on a lot of boards, but it's not a huge improvement.
I mean, I'd say it's a pretty relevant improvement. Like you were talking about white, black, and black, red, or white, black as being kind of a big game deck, and I would say I don't think it necessarily always has to play that way. I think it can often play more as a small game deck where you're playing a lot of removal and you're using your Skyfishers to pick up your nowhere to runs or your cases or whatever to just be all CubeCobras. I went the whole podcast without saying this, but to me the best version of these Skyfisher decks are white, black, all CubeCobras, where just everything you play ends up effectively being a CubeCobra. So in those sorts of games, you might only have a couple creatures in play, and the fact that this can attack sometimes is like a 4/2, I think is actually very relevant. It's not a huge power spike, but it's relevant, and I think a clear A. Doesn't quite get up to the top level, but definitely better than Twinga, obviously, and enough better that I think it belongs in a higher tier.
Okay, I haven't played a ton with this one because we did skip it because we had access to some Procure, so we chose not to run this one. So, and in Final Fantasy, the Final Fantasy set it was just not where you want it to be necessarily. So I haven't had a ton of experience with this one, but if you're selling that the extra stats are enough to be a whole tier above it, I'm fine with that.
I think so.
All right, so I'm really hoping we have a disagreement on this one because next up is Indoctrination Attendant. So it is 3 and a white for a 3/4. With Toxic, and when it enters, you may return another permanent you control to its owner's hand. If you do, create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1. All right, so the downside on this card first, 3/4 for 4 is not a good stat line. Toxic is an irrelevant mechanic in most settings. The Might can't block, So it's almost exclusively just you're getting an artifact game object. Daneelius, is that enough to pay 4 mana for?
Yes. Yes, this is a good card. I would say that this might be the card that got me to make a Peasant Cube in the first place, believe it or not. I think it might have been this card specifically. Phyrexia LB1, which is what the set that this card is from, is maybe my favorite set of all time, which makes me seem like an insane person, I know, but I did really enjoy the white-red versus green-red constant gameplay in that format. I thought it was fun. And
I will go on a limb there and join you that while it's not my favorite set by any means, I am a Phyrexian LB1 defender, and that apparently means that if you think it's a below-average set that was pretty fun, then it makes you a giant defender for that set.
There you go, yeah. No, there's obviously many problems with the set, but I liked it. And you know, one of the reasons why I liked, one of the things that I enjoyed about this card is that it very much was a data darling, and I'm a data boy myself, and this one was not one that people thought was going to do incredibly well, and it ended up being one of the better commons in the set. And yeah, I think that multiple game objects is huge, and the fact that this is a card that gives you multiple game objects and also then card advantage on top of it by returning your other permanents, and the fact that it makes an artifact for your artifact synergies means that it's a very solid card. It's been pushed out for me just because 4 mana is tough, and you know the slots are hard to come by, and because I think they're probably better. I mean, not probably. There are better Skyfishers available to us now. I would put this personally at like top of C, bordering on bottom of B. But I do think it's a good card. And
so you've got it about right where I had it. I figured this. I thought the way you were talking, this was going to be a contention point for us. That's roughly right where I had it. Is the very top of C, very bottom of B.
Yeah, I wish I could go higher, but these days I'm just so intent on pushing the mana value of my entire cube down that I need a lot from a 4-drop. And this, but I don't think it's embarrassing to run this even in my environment, and I think many environments this would be totally fine to play.
Yeah, I am going to stick with the top of C here, I think, and just because I think at 4 mana, like, you really, like, there's only a couple of 3-cost Skyfishers that make the top, like, B or above, and I don't really think you can get any of them there at 4 mana.
It's fair enough.
All right, so Tim did want to send his regards that he would have this next card in S tier. I had it a little below that, but I'm open to the discussion point, and that is Fear of Isolation, which is 1 in a blue for a enchantment creature that when you cast it, you return 1 permanent back to your hand, and it has flying with 2/3 stat line. So we've got that very solid core Skyfisher stat line, which even now is really good. This card was an amazing card in Duskmourn. It's in a color that doesn't really get much of this effect, as we've seen, and it doesn't get almost any good versions of this effect. So I had this in A tier, and I would be willing to hear it bumped up to S tier if you really wanted to, but I think A tier for me is where it belongs, where it's a very good stat line. It's a little unique for the color, but it is a cast trigger, which makes it a little harder to synergize with. And being an enchantment is usually downside, though not always.
Yeah, I agree with basically all of that. To me, the main reason why I would have it A tier as opposed to B, because I do think the cast trigger is a real downside. But the main reason to have it in A is just blue doesn't get 2 mana 2/3s with flying. Like the stats are so much more uncommon for blue. To me, more so than the effect, because similar to green, I don't necessarily think blue has the best targets for this. I think you really do want to be picking up, ideally, removal spells like Nowhere to Run, or Case or Saw Blades. And blue doesn't really have any of that, but the body size is just huge for blue. So I think it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I don't think I'd ever go to B with this card. The stats are just too good, like you mentioned. And next up we have the card that I think it actually replaced in our Peasant Cube, which is Zephyr Sentinel. So Zephyr Sentinel is 1 in a blue, and it's from the Brothers War. And it's a 2/1 with flash and flying, and when it enters the battlefield, you return up to 1 other target creature you control to its owner's hand. And if it was a soldier, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. And I was really surprised the first time I saw the +1 counter, because you kind of forget about that in Cube, but then it actually ends up coming up more often than you'd think. I like this card, but I don't think it's super good. So where are we wanting to put on this one? I originally had it in like B tier, but I think that might be too high with creatures, especially because in blue, I think this is actually kind of a cost. This is not a card that's free in blue. I think that the effect is powerful. The rate is decent, but this kind of got shoved out by Plume Creed Escort. That's what we replaced it with, which is a much more on rate for effect for blue.
Yeah, I mean, I think Plume is better. I do think Plume is really, really strong. It maybe as a Skyfisher, this isn't as good as other cards, but I think just as a blue card, it's really, really good. And I think blue is able to make use of the fact that this is instant speed way better than white gets to make use of the fact that it's Twingas are instant speed. So I like this card a lot. It's still in my cube. I'm at 540, so I have more room. But I would probably put this bottom of B. I think the fact that this is in my cube and Celebrant isn't tells you, I think, what I think of the card. I think it's a really useful card for especially like blue tempo strategies, to be able to hold up counter spell and then just play your flash flyer. That sometimes gets you value against a removal spell and sometimes doesn't. But compared to these other top, S through B Skyfishers here, this is like, not nearly as good as a Skyfisher because it only hits creatures. But I think just as a card, I think it's quite strong.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I originally had this as like a upper level B card. I think moving it to like lower level B, I think it's probably worse than Chinga, but I mean these two cards I could be interchangeable. I think I would say for me Sticky Tongue is kind of the ceiling of B, and like Celebrant's the floor. And so everything in between doesn't, the ceiling and the floor are the ones I really care about there. Okay, so if you are a Magic Boomer, the list is now over. We're done. You can go home. But we do have one more inclusion. And this one's a doozy. So this is Skyline Savior. So it is the dreaded white 1 cost, but in exchange, you get a 3/4 flyer that when it enters, you return a permanent you control to its owner's hand. And if it's a non-angel creature, it perpetually gains +1/+1 flying and becomes an angel. And perpetually means if it dies, it goes to the graveyard, you recur it later, it comes back with that same stat line. And like, I have this at the bottom of S tier. I think it is worse actually than Sun Pearl Kieran and probably worse than Pixie just because 1 white's a real cost. But boy, if you have never turned your Thraben Inspector into like a 2/3 flyer perpetually, that it is a thrill you're going to be chasing for a while. This card is a ridiculous stat line. 3/4 flyer is huge. And making another thing, it's really like a 4/5 flyer worth of stats if you do it on a creature. And we mentioned not wanting to do it on a creature, but like this is the kind of one that you'll just pick up your 2-drop and replay it, or 1-drop and just replay it as a +1/+1 flyer later into the game. I think this card's insane. We don't run it for that reason.
Well, I mean, I'm confused because I thought this was a Magic tier list, and you brought something. I mean, I don't know what the hell this card is, but it's certainly not a Magic card. But if I have to put it on this tier list, yeah, I mean, the effect is insane. But I'm a stickler about 1 white man. It's a problem for me. I don't think I definitely wouldn't put it in S just for that reason alone. And I could even see putting it as far down as B, just because I'm so against. I think that. You lose games because of these mana costs, and you don't really realize it as it's happening. And yeah, it obviously will win games too. But I dock a card significantly for double pip mana costs. So personally, even though I've never played with the card, so my opinion is worthless, I would say, top of B, bottom of A at best.
Okay, cool. Daneelius, that is some great insight. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and stick it up here in S tier because once you've played it, you can't not put it in S tier. Yes. I will agree with you. An extra white mana will lose you games, but also what will win you games is turning your Neighborhood Guardian into a 3/3 flyer, or
I believe that.
Yeah, card's insane. If you pushed hard enough, I might have went to top of A, but I don't think I could. The card stat line is just too ridiculous. It's a real alchemy is a really silly place.
Yeah, if you resolve the card quickly, it's gonna win the game often.
That's the great thing about the card. You draw it on like turn 10, and it's like still the best draw in your deck. Yeah, card's insane. That being said, I will say as a pure Skyfisher, it is actually worse than the other ones. Because if you're picking up a non-creature with this, you don't get to turn it into a giant angel. So really, this is in that vein of like, we said the creature ones are bad, but this is the one exception. So like if you wanted to, put it at the top of A for that reason, I would understand. I am going to leave it in S because it was horrifically broken when we ran it for a brief period of time.
Well, in fairness, no one is actually going to run that card because it's an alchemy card, so it doesn't matter. But,
Fair enough. We're spending time arguing over something that all of the actual Magic players have turned off the podcast already.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So that is going to go ahead and wrap us up. Remember, the best way to support Jank Diver Gaming is to come play the Jank Diver Gaming Discord. And remember, you can find this podcast on Libsyn as well as YouTube. And you can find me streaming on twitch.tv/Teld Talks. And you can find Daneelius either on our Discord or over on the Limited Level Ups Discord. And we are all wishing Tim to come back to the podcast quickly and guide us, because we are lost children wearing our father's shoes.
Fish out of water, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to having Tim back. And I hope you all at home have yourself a wonderful evening.
See ya.